Welcome to the Monday, October 6th edition of the RotoWire Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm Joe Bartel. You can follow me on Twitter at JB Fantasy Sports. Alongside me every Monday, Jake Letarski. You can follow him at RotoJake. We have waiver wire priority ads. We have the Rachaad White, Rico Dowdle sweepstakes if they're somehow available in your league. And then a whole lot of tight ends. It's kind of a weird spot. We got through, it felt like one Buymageddon here in week 5 with a bunch of different relevant teams. And of course, a lot of injuries that happened throughout the week, throughout past recordings. So we're going to be kind of going over those and getting you set for week 6. Week 7 has 2 buys, and then week 8 has 6. So be mindful of that as we approach here the second wave of Buymageddon here in NFL season. Of course, if you've been following along for us, if you're just tuning in for the first time, Jake and I always go over our top 5 waiver ads for the week. So if you're just you only have a 10-minute span to go ahead and listen to the show, either on the YouTube page or on the audio version of this, we at least have you kind of up to date on most of those relevant guys. And again, I'll start this by saying it does not count for our top 10 overall list, but if Rico Dowdle or Rachaad White are available, Rachaad White now at 75% roster on Yahoo leagues, Rico Dowdle over or close to 60%. If either of those guys are available, they are absolute must-adds even in your 8-team league because they have relevant roles here in the immediate future.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Bucky Irving is going to be out for week 6, it looks like. So we have another Rachaad White sighting here. Of course, he was always the vulture touchdown around the goal line sometimes. Mix in as a bit of a change of pace, but obviously as he's RB1 on that offense that Baker Mayfield has running pretty smooth and looking good. So Rachaad White, definitely go to him. Rico Dowdle, not as much of a sure thing because we don't know for sure if Chuba Hubbard is going to play week 6. He didn't practice at all last week, though, with a calf injury. He had apparently been playing with that calf injury and then just...
Actually, I'm not sure if you saw this, it's a separate calf injury. So he has calf injuries on both of his calves. Yes, not good.
Exactly. So, yeah, I guess, again, with the show being Monday, we couldn't squeeze these guys in to our top 5s when they were 50% rostered. But now we definitely have to at least mention it, in case those guys are still left out there. Because, yeah, it's looking like both of them will be pretty active here for week 6 here. But there is a guy that we didn't mention last week because we didn't quite know about the Trey Benson knee injury, at least to the extent. I think that came out Wednesday. So we might have not even hit it for the Tuesday show. The news was kind of out there, like rumor-wise, but it wasn't like official. And, of course, that makes Michael Carter here the number 1 overall pickup for me. Now, I know you said in 17 leagues, Joe, that he's not available in a single one. I think he might still be there in 1 or 2 of my dozen leagues. But, Michael Carter from the Cardinals is the clear fire pickup here if those guys aren't in play here. Of course, Trey Benson ended up going on IR, and he's out 4 to 6 weeks after arthroscopic surgery for a meniscus injury. So I know Amari DiMercato was around. He was kind of the change of pace back going into this with Benson as the main guy here. And really, even before, we have to acknowledge the boneheaded DiMercato play where
I'm going to talk about it further. I promise you, Jake. I'll get into a bit more detail because it's part of my very, very fun week of fantasy football for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I started DiMercato in 2 spots, and it definitely cost me to some degree. I don't think it cost me matchups, but it definitely cost me points here. But in any case, DiMercato, even if we throw out the boneheaded play where he dropped the ball right before crossing the goal line there, it was really Michael Carter that stepped in and was Trey Benson, and Amari DiMercato's role kind of stayed the same. Michael Carter had 38 snaps compared to 17 for DiMercato, and he had 72% of the running back rushes. Michael Carter even had a 16.7% target share, so he's getting looks in the passing game too. And if we learned anything from this week, it's that, it's not like DiMercato, despite the big play, it's not like his role is suddenly going to be on the rise after what happened there. So,
exactly.
So it's Michael Carter there. Now, Bam Knight was around. He scored a touchdown, caught 1 target. I can't see any situation in the deepest of leagues starting Bam Knight, but Michael Carter is definitely the back there. Now, the only ding on Michael Carter, I guess you could say, is that he's got a pretty tough upcoming schedule. He's at Indy this week, who is 8th best against opposing running backs in PPR formats. Then home against the Packers, who have been really good at defending the run. We'll see how the Devondre Wyatt injury plays into effect there. But the Packers are number 5, and then he's got a bye week. And then he's got Dallas right after that, who is 27th. So good matchup there. Everyone's a good matchup against the Cowboys. But after that, the rest of the season, there's just one bottom half ranked matchup there, and that doesn't happen until championship week against the Bengals. So at that point, we figure Trey Benson will probably be back and contributing here. So if there's a ding on Carter, it's that its rest of season schedule is tough. But based on what we learned this week and throughout the game here on Sunday, the next 4 to 6 weeks are going to be heavy Michael Carter, making him a very, very attractive, reliable, high floor type of pickup here as we continue to move through the fantasy football season. So he's number one through and through.
I despise the Cardinals, Jake. They are such a dumb team for the talent that they have. And of course, that they lost to the Titans was like, yes, I didn't take them at all in Survivor. I had actually recommended Titans plus 7.5 as one of those that I didn't mind at all on the weekly big betting sheet that I do on Twitter, JB Fantasy Sports. Like, that this felt such a Cardinals way to lose a football game. You have the Amari DiMercato fumble at the goal line. For what it's worth, Jake, I thought he crossed the line. Like, I didn't think the visuals out there would have been one of those to negate that or to overturn it. Either way, that cost me in stake league.
He didn't sense the defender coming up. Like,
right, and we saw that
when the guy was in hot pursuit.
Yeah, we saw that with A.D. Mitchell as well for the Colts last week too. Like, I just walk one more step into the end zone. Like, it's a super dumb thing, but I actually thought he got close to crossing the line. If he not, that would have irritated me if I was a Cardinals fan. Then to have the Cam Ward interception get fumbled and then kicked into the end zone for the Titans to recover it to keep that upset bid alive is just crazy to me too. Like, I'm not sure if you guys saw it on social media. I don't know if I linked it in my article, but Jonathan Gannon, head coach for the Cardinals, just was eviscerating Amari DiMercato after that fumble on the sideline, and the whole tune of the game changed. Cardinals should have been up 28-6 if DiMercato finishes that off. And to your point, Jake, I would agree with you. They've kept DiMercato on the roster all year as a special teams guy. You mentioned change of pace back. He's supposed to be a good pass blocker. But if literally Michael Carter can do everything better as a pass catcher, as a runner, they are clearly comfortable with him as a pass blocker since he played more than DiMercato. There is no reason to hold on to DiMercato after what we saw with that fumble and the way Jonathan Gannon was just taking it into him on the bench as well too. Again, I have DiMercato in stake league. He has to replace Chuba Hubbard because I'm an idiot. And I'm probably going to be paying $500 worth of stake because DiMercato is going to punch away 8 points for me when I desperately need it. I was so annoyed to see that. I was like, oh, great, big play by DiMercato. Oh, wait, not very good. And
no, exactly. I'm sitting near the bottom of the stake league standings as well due to a variety of reasons. You know, Chase Brown, AJ Brown, Team Brown didn't work out for me. Brown did not do anything for me. But I did at least have Trey Benson, so I thought, okay, I got a starter. Right. And of course, that came crumbling down. But at the time, I picked up DiMercato because what the heck, might as well. Ended up starting him this week, and now it's like, okay, we're kind of back to square one here with not a whole lot. Yes, and yes, in the chat, we know he let it go.
That is by definition a fumble. In like how the NFL categorizes it. So yes, it's a fumble even though he let go of the ball.
It's a fumble on the stat sheet. He lost 2 fantasy points for it. So it is indeed a fumble.
Our own Alan Sazowski had said it, and I agree. Michael Carter himself, in a quote, had talked about how he was going to be the starter. Like, there was a quote about, how do you feel coming off the practice squad? And he's like, oh, it's crazy. 1 week I'm on the practice squad preparing for the team. Now I'm going to be a starter for the Cardinals. And yet we still were debating, is it Amari DiMercato or Michael Carter as the starter? No longer a debate. Michael Carter, in my mind, needs to be much more higher rostered in that like 75% range that Rachaad White was.
Yeah, after the first Yahoo default waivers run on Tuesday, he'll be well over 50%. Everyone's going to be running to scoop him up, as they should be. So, yes, out of all those guys, Rico, Dowdle, Rachaad White, Michael Carter is the only one that's under 50% rostered, so I can rank him number 1 in terms of our must-add players this week here. Number 2, Joe, though, that's a guy that you've been on all preseason, and I will admit I drafted him quite a bit and had cut him in a few places, but he'd always been kind of a watch list player here. He wasn't somebody that was getting drafted in standard 12-team redraft leagues, but number 2 is tight end, and it's actually a really good tight end week, and that's Mason Taylor of the New York Jets. Joe, it took until week 5, but you definitely nailed this in thinking, we know that Garrett Wilson is the big target hog and is going to get all the targets, but who's essentially the wide receiver 2 on that team? They don't really have one. I mean, the Jets aren't going to Josh Reynolds, Allen Lazard, any of these guys consistently. But Mason Taylor is the man. He comes out, leads the team with 12 targets, catches 9 of them for 67 yards. So unlike some of these other tight ends we're going to talk about far later in the show that are touchdown dependent, Mason Taylor is big-time high PPR floor And I know that, honestly, there are a lot of leagues this week where I'm going to cut Juwan Johnson for Mason Taylor. And I don't think that's too bold, because I know Juwan Johnson was a huge volume guy at the start of the season, but now they have Taysom Hill and Foster Moreau back.
Mm-hmm.
And Juwan Johnson's target share has been steadily declining here. Meanwhile, Mason Taylor, I got the numbers down. I got to scroll to my tight end section here. In week 4, he had 7 targets. It was a 25.9% target share. And then, of course, the 12 targets this week, that's 27.3%. On top of that, Mason Taylor was out there for 60 of 73 offensive snaps. And among the non-quarterbacks, he was second to only Garrett Wilson, who had 68 among the non-quarterback, skilled players here. So Mason Taylor is finally getting the opportunity, and he is taking advantage of the opportunity. Upcoming schedule, he's got the Broncos this week, which isn't a great matchup. But then he's got Carolina and Cincinnati, who are 31 and 32 against tight ends in half PPR formats, respectively, before his bye week. So, yeah, Denver, it's not like Patrick Surtain's covering him, so he'll get looks against them. And then we got Carolina and Cincinnati. So Mason Taylor is checking all the boxes to be the number 2 top pickup this week. He's only 13% rostered, so you can get him just about everywhere. And you've got the usage, you've got the skill, you've got the matchups. He's checking every single box. And I think if he can even keep up 70 to 75% of this volume in any given week, man, he'll finish as a top 8 tight end, possibly more. There's plenty of time for him to move up in that respect.
For those of you listening to the podcast just on a audio platform, anywhere you listen to your favorite podcast, we have a Waiver Wire article up on the RotoWire site, 15% off a subscription to RotoWire. YouTube 15 gets you that 15% off, as you can see down below. But I do the article every week. I publish it around 11 a.m. Central Time on Monday. I update it daily leading up to Thursday's kickoff. I would say over half the names we're discussing today, and probably the majority of the names you're going to see on the other Waiver Wire articles throughout the week, were players that I had specifically mentioned Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday on the updated pieces throughout the article last week. So I reference it. I date it back to that one as well, too. We'll have the video, the YouTube platform, in the article itself, so you can visually see myself supporting the Brewers, Jake as well, mentally supporting the Brewers as well, too, on the YouTube side of things. But I talked about Mason Taylor in that article last week. In fact, I talked about a lot of these guys. And I think that's kind of the highlight of the Week 6 Waiver Wire, is that if you're progressive, and Jake, you do a really good job of this, playing with a lot of leagues that you're in, churning the bottom of your roster and targeting some of these guys, whether it be Mason Taylor, I'll mention Isaiah Davis here in just a second as well, too. The Michael Carter, Amari DiMercado part of things was a late addition in the week, one of those that you could have been aggressively getting that in early, especially for Michael Carter. The way that you can operate fantasy right now and be successful is not always just waiting for that boom to happen, but trying to project what could occur. And you had said this was Mason Taylor's breakout week. I actually think last week was a confirmation that Mason Taylor was that kind of player. It was either 8 or 9 targets, again, junk time production, not to the extent that we saw here against the Cowboys, but still, that there were signs that this was happening. Of course, I cut Mason Taylor in almost every league I drafted him, but I do believe in the talent, and I think rest of the way, we're talking about a low-end tight end one that you could possibly start in PPR leagues pretty reliably.
Yeah, I mean, you're definitely starting him over a Mark Andrews type, over Juwan Johnson now. He's over Hunter Henry probably. All these guys. He's
the Henry one's dependent on the matchup. I think they had a tough one against the Bills. He's been so touchdown scoring dependent as well. But let's go to the other 5, or at least a handful of our list again. Michael Carter being at the top. We mentioned Rachaad White, Rico Dowdle. If they're available, please go grab them for sure. But Mason Taylor, likely available in most leagues, only 13% rostered on Yahoo. Let's get to the receiver conundrum. And I say conundrum, Jake, because there's a handful of guys that if you need a starter this week, you can roll the dice. Jake, you're especially good at getting touchdowns out of these guys. It feels like frustratingly so, more than me. But between Kendrick Bourne, I think, and possibly even like a Ryan Flournoy for the Cowboys, one of those two, if you are desperate, and I don't know how desperate you are, but if you're desperate for a flex or wide receiver play this week, I think Kendrick Bourne or Ryan Flournoy probably meet that threshold.
Yeah, so I actually ranked Kendrick Bourne number 3, and I'll make clear that the receivers this week aren't long-term plays; they're very short-term plays. Of course, Thursday Night Football, 49ers and the Rams here. Mac Jones starting the game. Ricky Pearsall, Jawan Jennings both out. Obviously, Ayuk is still out with the carryover injury from last season here. So I was looking into that, and it's you kind of think of who's left, right? And Kendrick Bourne and Demarcus Robinson were your choices. Demarcus Robinson gets targeted 7 times. catches 3 for 39. But Kendrick Bourne, who I somehow used on DraftKings for a Thursday through Monday contest. I always play one every week, a Thursday through Monday contest. And he was the stud. 11 targets, caught 10 of them for 142 yards. And you'd think, man, this is a breakout. But I put him down at number 3 in the list, and there's a lot of reasons to, not be too crazy on Kendrick Bourne. Of course, one is, this Thursday Night Football, kind of a flash in the pan, perhaps, because how does he fare when Pearsall and Jennings and eventually Ayuk are back? That's one thing. Also, he played with Mac Jones in New England, so there's a degree of history there.
Yeah.
We don't know if that whole chemistry and usage, even when these other guys are hurt, if that's going to carry over when Brock Purdy comes back. So that's another one. And then, of course, Demarcus Robinson actually technically ran more routes. Now, if you're trying to get into the predictive aspect of this thing, but that doesn't seem like it means much when Bourne's getting more targets and making the most of those targets. So yes, Bourne had a pretty solid week. If we know next week that both Pearsall and Jennings are out, Bourne is absolutely going to be a play, but I do not think Bourne is necessarily a rest of season option. He's merely a short-term option at best that could get you a good amount of PPR volume this week. He's at Tampa Bay. So if their receiving core isn't healthy, that game, of course, will have some shootout potential. That Bucs offense looks excellent. At Tampa Bay. But on top of that, I don't know if by week 7 against the Falcons, week 8 against the Texans, those are going to be tough matchups to go out and start him in as the rest of that team starts to get a little healthy. So short term, Kendrick Bourne, he was enough to be number 3 here. You want to talk about Flournoy from the Cowboys then too? Because I didn't actually put him on my list.
Yeah,
but,
real quick, George Kittle won't be back this week, or at least it sounds like he won't be back this week. And again, to your point with Ricky Pearsall and Juwan Jennings, if even one of them is available, or if we also have Mac Jones and Brock Purdy not playing. Mac Jones was gutting out that Thursday game. Whole lot of credit to him. We didn't get a chance to talk about that. I thought that was one of the more impressive efforts I've seen from a quarterback, backup or otherwise, in some time. Mac Jones played awesome and played through a lot of stuff. If Mac Jones isn't available, I'm not playing Kendrick Bourne with Adrian Martinez at the quarterback. So just keep all that in mind. Whereas Ryan Flournoy, who in that second half of that Packers tie, the broadcast was talking about him a lot. And I feel like I know more football than 9 out of 10 people in your life. And I had no idea who Ryan Flournoy was, a 6th-round pick for the Cowboys last year. But Chris Collinsworth had been like, well, Dak Prescott, he really likes this Flournoy guy. We'll have to see what happens. And I'm like, okay, yeah. Well, Tolbert gets that massive catch against the Packers, helps in that tie. I thought with Kevontae Turpin out, CeeDee Lamb still out with that high ankle sprain that the Cowboys don't want to put him on IR for. All right, well, for sure it'll be Tolbert. No. Dumbass Joe says, no, that's not going to end up working out that way. And we get Flournoy goes up for 114 yards. Now, important, and you mentioned this a little bit, the Cowboys are one of those defenses that are always going to allow points. Well, here come the Panthers, who are also not a very good defense, too, and it's why Bryce Young is going to lead our streaming quarterback section. In the event that you have the Cowboys in a shootout against Carolina, which could happen, I think Ryan Flournoy actually is the guy I'd rather have over all the other uncertainties in San Francisco with Kendrick Bourne. So either one, it's a desperate play. Like you mentioned, it's a short-term play, but I almost think Ryan Flournoy, provided that Kevontae Turpin does not play again, is probably one of those that I would go over Kendrick Bourne for.
Yeah, see, I'm not as sure about that because I think that it was still, even though Jalen Tolbert got blanked, he was still out there for 45 snaps, Pickens 46, and Flournoy was 33. This was a weird game because the Jets kind of threatened at the end, but were mostly 2-3 scores behind the entirety of the game. At one point, they got it to a 2-score game. It was either late in the third quarter, I think, after they got a touchdown and a 2-point conversion and then got some garbage. But this was a game where the Cowboys were consistently ahead 2-3 scores. Tolbert was out there for more snaps. Tolbert was actually he ran a 91% route rate, which was higher than Flournoy. And of course, like you said, Kevontae Turpin was sitting with a foot injury. I personally am not going to trust any pass catcher outside of Pickens and
Jake
Ferguson, who had a lot of look, and they're going to go to the running backs. Dak's been on fire lately. I'll give him that. But it would be a pretty desperation play to go for that, I think. And again, like Bourne, it's a short-term play too. As soon as everyone gets healthy there, especially when CeeDee Lamb comes back, I don't think that he really has a role in the offense here, even though he's been a reliable bridge here. So, good game. Maybe one more week against the Panthers if you need to. But, after that, and for that reason, like I don't see spending a bunch of fab on either Flournoy or Bourne, because I would rather roll the dice on a random touchdown score, look at the prop or something like that, than spend any kind of fab on there. And somebody
That's fair.
will probably spend the fab.
That's fair. All right, let's combine what I think is going to be effectively the other running backs, and we'll get to the Monday night game with Rashard Smith in just a little bit. But we mentioned this last week. I expanded upon it in my waiver wire article, but I don't think we really talked about this enough. Kendre Miller was one of the top waiver wire pickups last week, in large part because he played well and has played well for now it'll be 3 weeks straight. But the issue is, and I see this far too often, in fact, I heard it in the office today, Alvin Kamara could be traded, and therefore Kendre Miller is a pickup. Wrong. Do not make that mistake. You look at the cap ramifications if Alvin Kamara were to be traded. It not only is acquiring $8.5 million in salary for the Saints, or for the incoming team to trade for Kamara, but also the Saints take a $12.5 million dead cap hit if they choose to do so. There are teams that might make that decision. I'm not saying there won't be, but the idea of Alvin Kamara being an obvious trade candidate because the Saints stink, who, by the way, beat the Giants this week, I don't buy that. Whereas Isaiah Davis, now especially with Braylon Allen on injured reserve and possibly Jake Dunn for the season, we're talking about closer to 8 weeks as opposed to like that 4 to 6 week mark. You have Isaiah Davis as the obvious backup. And here are the Jets, who are, I think, the only team without a win this entire year, and also have Breece Hall on his rookie deal yet and likely not trying to sign him. I will wrap this into the Chargers, who might have lost Omar Hampton for a little bit of time. He left that Sunday, lost to the Commanders with on a walking boot, or in a walking boot, I should say. If the Chargers are both out, Najee Harris and Omar Hampton for, let's just say, a month, giving up a second or third round pick for a guy like Breece Hall, who can then turn into a compensatory pick for the next year, is a totally fine move for a team that has Super Bowl aspirations. Now, the Chargers had literally all, I think, 4 of their 5 offensive linemen were backups by the end of that Commander game. But if you are speculating on a backup that will end up starting because a team trades a player away, it's not Kendre Miller, it's Isaiah Davis in my mind. And if you don't think the Chargers trade for one, then a guy like Kimani Vidal, I think, is probably the obvious waiver wire pickup in deeper leagues.
Yeah, for sure. So I put Kendre Miller, repeat from last week because he's only 31% Yahoo. I put him at 4 on my list. And yeah, you did school me on the Kamara cap situation last week. So I tried to base my analysis or my bullet points here for Kendre Miller in favor of him based on what's happening, right now. His snap share has increased every week this season. It was a season high 39% Sunday against the Giants. And granted, this was a competitive game that, of course, they ended up winning. He had 26 total snaps compared to 33 for Kamara, finished with 10 carries for 41 yards, catches his only target for 7 yards. So to some degree, especially with Bymageddon coming up here, there is some standalone value here. He carried the ball 2 more times than Kamara. Of course, Kamara was a lot more involved in the passing game. So even if the Saints keep him around, there might get to, Kamara's been around a long time. He's getting up there. There could be a situation in which the coaching staff, whatever, believes Kendre Miller is better and gives him a better chance to win games. So that's also a possibility. I will acknowledge and agree that Kamara getting traded is a bit of a long shot, but the usage pattern for Kendre Miller, especially in games like they were competitive against, Buffalo last week, and ended up not winning. Obviously beat Giants this week, and in those games, Kendre Miller is getting more run. So he's a guy that I'm going to continue to stash. I'm not quite ready to cut. I guess I'd cut him for Michael Carter because the role would be there. But when we get to these quick hit backs, I don't think I would let go of Kendre Miller yet. If anything, still be looking to add him a little bit. So yeah, I put Kendre Miller at 4 on the list, and then number 5. Yes, I went to the Chargers running backs. They're the team, like you said, that makes the most sense to make a trade because the Chargers want to run the football under Harbaugh. They want that to be their identity, and they're running out of personnel to do that. So why don't they go ahead and grab it? If Breece Hall's available, if Jerome Ford's available, that type of thing. But until then, yes, we're looking at Kimani Vidal and Hassan Haskins. I believe it was Vidal that was elevated from the practice squad. Yes. Haskins was already getting a little bit of work after Harris went.
Haskins plays special teams. Yep. Haskins been the bludgeoner guy when Gus Edwards was injured last year, and I think Haskins is actually a worse version of Gus Edwards in that capacity. I will keep reiterating. Now, if the Chargers have too many injuries that they don't feel like they can be competitive this year, that's a different matter. But I think Uncle Ted illustrates it perfectly. The Browns have Dylan Sampson. They have Quinshon Judkins. There's zero reason to have a guy like Jerome Ford, and Jerome Ford would fit for that team perfectly, even in the event Omari Hampton is healthy, and I think it would cost very little. So if I'm speculating on these running backs, and that's what this section is, as we kind of get lower in the top 10 waiver wire pickups for both of us, I would rather have Isaiah Davis, and I think I'd rather have Rashard Smith, but I actually kind of wonder if Jerome Ford is almost more valuable to me than Kimani Vidal, who's had his chances and has been disappointing over the past 2 years in that capacity.
Yeah, I was very on the fence. I put, your Chargers running back over Davis, but honestly, I think it's probably a better move to put Isaiah Davis as my number 5 pickup here because I just don't know what to make of Vidal and Haskins, and it'll be an awkward split. It was funny in my head. I was thinking of Haskins as your change of pace pass catching. Haskins is 6'2", 228. Vidal is 5'10",
right.
5'8", 215. So like it's not like they're going to pound Vidal near the goal line. If this backfield isn't healthy here. So I guess Haskins would be the guy there, but Isaiah Davis is actually a little bit more attractive. Again, Braylon Allen undergoing knee surgery, going to miss 8 to 12 weeks. That bumps up Davis to RB2 on the depth chart. Now, Breece Hall had a 93% rush share. He did fumble and briefly left the game, but then he came back and was still productive afterwards. So, good, decent all-around day for Hall, fantasy-wise at least. Isaiah Davis was out there for 33 snaps. The problem is he only carried the ball one time. Now, like we were saying when we're talking about the Cowboys receivers here, the Jets were consistently 2 to 3 scores behind the entire game. I think the closest they got in the fourth quarter was 2 scores. That would have both needed 2-point conversions here. So it's not like they were putting the ball on the ground a lot, and that seems to be here the pattern with the Jets here. But Breece Hall had a 93% rush share. And then, of course, Davis still out there for 33 snaps. So it's tough. Yeah, they only ran the ball 15 times. Hall got, I believe, the targets too, that were available. So it's not a great split, and you got a tough matchup against the Broncos next week. But then you get Carolina and Cincinnati. So just throwing that out there. Isaiah Davis is an interesting spec ad because there is a little standalone value, not quite as much as Kendre and Miller. But you're right. If Breece Hall does get traded, then all of a sudden Isaiah Davis is slot in as your RB2 and you're starting him every week.
Well, there you go. That's our kind of top 10 pickup list. Again, if Rachaad White or Rico Dowdle are somehow available, they are easily the spend your fab good top waiver wire priority on those. But even Michael Carter, who is only at 39% rostered, at least as of this recording on Yahoo, I think would be one of those guys that we're both aggressively trying to add right now, even with the schedule coming up afterwards. Very difficult. Mason Taylor, probably the headliner for both of us, given we want some tight end reliability in that low end tight end 1 range. And then the Kendrick Bournes, Ryan Flournoys, the 1 week streamer wide receiver, if you want, Kendre Miller, Kimani Vidal. We could add Isaiah Davis to that list, and I'll talk about Rashard Smith as we get to the running backs a little bit later, but that more or less kind of outlines what we're looking at here. I want to get a word from our sponsors, Chalkboard, who I've been enjoying working with. We've been doing a lot of the videos on my Twitter, JB Fantasy Sports, going over a lot of the options here. So cash in on your NFL picks this season with Chalkboard. Simply choose more or less in your favorite player stats to win 5,000 times your money. For a limited time only, new players get $20 free with no deposit required. Yes, you heard that right. 20 free just on sign up. See why over 1 million fans have already locked in with Chalkboard to turn their sports knowledge into cold, hard cash. Whether you're locking in the perfect slip with alternate lines, using the cash out feature to take your money and run, or hammering the daily promos like I love to do, today is your chance to win up to $40,000 on your single entry. Stop sitting on the sidelines. Get into the game with Chalkboard Fantasy Sports, now available in 30-plus states. Download Chalkboard today and use promo code ROTONFL. That's ROTONFL, Roto NFL, to get free $20 with no deposit required. The quarterback position has one streamer. We are correct last week in using Tua. That actually was beneficiary for me, Jake, who lost Lamar Jackson in a lot of places. I think this week it's pretty obvious lock and load Bryce Young against the Cowboys defense, and yet I am by no means a Bryce Young guy, so I'm very nervous in recommending this compared to last week with Tua.
Yeah. Bryce Young is the matchup or the recommendation here. It's going to be stream against Dallas all season long because even in games that, Dallas is playing well, my Justin Fields, Garrett Wilson DraftKings stack worked just fine. It was solid and productive, and they're going to give up points here. So, yeah, Bryce Young's the guy. He's only 19% rostered. He's the home team. That helps to some degree. So, I'm getting on that as the stream. Looking through, I think we mentioned at the beginning, but Vikings and Texans are on bye. If you have Stroud, he's probably not your QB1. Same thing with Wentz. Wentz only had value outside of 2 quarterback leagues, so you're not looking to stream a ton. But Bryce Young was the option that stood out. I'm also a little bit maybe Jackson Dart, 39%, can do some stuff in garbage time. Didn't look great this week, of course. The other one I wanted to highlight was Sam Darnold at Jacksonville. Now, he's been pretty consistently good and productive. I've quietly used him in a super flex league where I waited on quarterbacks, exactly like you should do in super flex. But he's been solid there. He's at Jacksonville, and I know Jacksonville's good at creating turnovers, but they can give up some points as well. And Sam Darnold's been running this offense pretty efficiently, so he's another interesting play here at Jacksonville this week. He's only 31% rostered here, so it's Darnold and Young. There aren't really any standout for single QB redraft that really make it. I would say, if anything, maybe Darnold, just because of the way he's playing, because Bryce Young's only useful this week. But the only real actionable thing I'm going to do with this Darnold, trend here is I had spec drafted, Jalen Milroe in deep 2 quarterback leagues. I'm going to go ahead and cut him now because I don't think Darnold's getting pulled for any reason outside of an injury the way he's been playing.
Yeah, somebody in the chat asked about Michael Penix. They go against the Bills. I think Michael Penix actually pretty low on my list of options. I would rather play Sam Darnold. I would obviously
he's already
play.
burned us this year.
And it's not even so much that. The Bills' defense is historically pretty good, and when we have Bryce Young in, theoretically, again, I want to keep emphasizing that, theoretically a really good spot. Bryce Young has proven to be disappointing too. I don't know how you kind of avoid that, so Bryce Young would be my option. I think the best of the streaming candidates. I don't mind Cam Ward against the Raiders. That would be one of those really deep league single quarterback ones, and I assume you're going to be at the Bengals game, Bengals-Packers this weekend. Jake Browning is probably going to have a good game because that seems to be my luck this week, and 14.5-point favorites of the Packers. Give me the Bengals every single day. I have not watched anything over the past 3 weeks to convince me otherwise that Wisconsin sports will be just automatic and run the way they're supposed to. So no, I think Jake Browning might be okay.
Yeah, he could be all right too. If anything in a garbage comeback scenario here, hopefully that defense can scheme around if Wyatt misses again, because they clearly weren't ready for that against the Cowboys on Sunday night. A couple of quick hitter 2 quarterback notes. Ready for those?
Yeah, let's go for it.
Let's see here. What did I have? So obviously Mac Jones started Thursday Night Football for Purdy. Purdy's week to week with his nagging toe injury. I don't see anything to suggest Mac Jones is in danger of missing this week necessarily yet. I know he dealt with cramps for most of that game.
Yeah.
Adrian Martinez would be next up, but I think it's going to be Mac Jones' show, assuming Purdy isn't ready. We mentioned the Lamar Jackson hamstring injury a little bit and how that was kind of a bizarro situation, but he sat for Cooper Rush this week, and the Ravens' offense was completely dismal. And apparently Lamar Jackson only has an outside shot to play week 6 against the Rams. I think that was from Jay Glazer's little bit on the Fox pregame show here. So looking like another Cooper Rush week. And then, as we speculated, we've got a few of these right in the show. I mean, I feel like the weeks that we said, okay, Russell Wilson's not playing well, Joe Flacco's not playing well, stay on watch for these guys. And it took 1 to 2 weeks in both occasions for these guys to take over. But Dylan Gabriel, of course, took over for Cleveland, played a pretty competitive game overseas, not super accurate, 19 for 33, 190 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. He's basically a game manager. He doesn't really run the ball either, so there's a limited ceiling there. But Dylan Gabriel, of course, is now in play in 2 quarterback leagues, probably for the rest of the season there. And I don't know, that I thought maybe that would be an upgrade for Jerry Jeudy. It certainly wasn't. He threw a lot to Isaiah Bond and to
Harold Fannin and David Njoku.
Yeah. Those guys caught the tight ends, and Njoku was out there for a lot more volume, but Fannin is still definitely interesting. Like, their 2 tight ends are wide receiver 1 and 2 on that team. The Browns are just weird, but that's what we have here for 2 quarterback leagues. Obviously, things will pop up as injury reports pop up throughout the week, but we'll have you covered on RotoWire.
Yep, the waiver wire will be updated like we were doing with Cooper Rush and Dylan Gabriel, which I did get correct in the waiver wire article last week, where I was more on Dylan Gabriel than Cooper Rush if you're in those super flex leagues or deep ones. Like I tend to be where both those guys were available. Before we get to the running backs and get kind of rehashing what we talked about with that top 5, let's get a word from our sponsors here. Mega Sports Progressive. Elevate your game with Ultimate Sports Contest. Mega Sports Progressive. Dive into a world of excitement with 3 Progressive jackpots and a chance to win big every week and every month. We're rewarding 1,500 lucky winners, distributing over $50,000 in monthly prizes. All you do is answer 15 daily sports props. Add up your correct responses for the week's cash prizes and tally the week's totals for huge monthly cash rewards. Mega Sports makes it fun and easy to join. It's a thrilling opportunity to be part of a growing community of sports enthusiasts. And of course, we are happy to be partnered with them. Sign up today and unlock a chance to win big every day, every week, and every month. Sign up for free. No commitments, no credit cards needed. Your first 9 days of play are free. Visit megasportspro.com today. All right, getting back to basically the recap of the running backs and overall some of the quick hitters, and we'll add Rashard Smith to the list, who made my top 5 list overall. But the concept of Chiefs who play Monday night here and what happens with Kareem Hunt and Isaiah Pacheco, I do think Rashard Smith will be used more. I like speculating on him as I do a lot of these rookie running backs, which have been good in the beginning and end of September, early October here. Didn't start out the season hot right now, but Rashard Smith, I think we'll have to see what happens tonight as of this recording. But kind of going over the other options again, Jake, here.
Yeah, exactly. So just to recap, obviously you look for Rico Dowdle, you look for Rachaad White first. Michael Carter's almost in that group, but just under our 50% threshold. We talked about Kendre Miller and his standalone utility at the beginning of the show. We talked about the Chargers running backs, likely Hassan Haskins for now, due to the Amari and Hampton injury. We talked about Isaiah Davis, not only in his standalone role being elevated to RB2, but what happens in the event of a Breece Hall trade. And then, like you said, I had a note in my quick hitters for just to watch for Rashard Smith on Monday night. He was looking like he was starting to be groomed a bit as a pass catching back here, but I don't know. In my eyes, he's still RB3, and there's going to be a lot less targets for a pass catching back once the Chiefs wide receiving core gets healthy there. So I had Rashard Smith as a quick hitter role here. I also wanted to mention Tyler Algier. After his bye week, he's down to 31% roster. If you're a Bijan owner, you definitely need to have him. And if not, he's still someone that'll vulture a touchdown here and there, vulture a handful of carries, a decent back that probably should be rostered here because of a little standalone utility, not just a handcuff necessarily. I wanted to make note of Tajay Spears. He made his debut, but was outsnapped 49-17 by Pollard, who also ran more routes. So Tajay Spears, maybe they're just easing him back in a little bit, seeing what they got, but it still looks like Pollard's backfield there through and through. You'd be hard-pressed to pick up and start Tajay Spears. And then, I wanted to throw a mention for Jaden Blue. He made his NFL debut week 5. He only played 11 snaps, and that was even in what was largely a blowout. Javonte Williams was dominant there, so I'm definitely not rushing to add Jaden Blue. I'm actually dropping him outside of deep dynasty leagues. I'll kind of take the L there. I loved him before the season, but that was mostly due to a lack of faith in the other guys. But at least Jaden Blue will be active while Miles Sanders is out nursing his knee and ankle injury. And I guess if we're going to mention Rachaad White, we maybe mention Sean Tucker as a change of pace guy for one more week. He didn't really do a whole lot in this game, but that could be one of your boomer busts. Like, it's 11:45 a.m. Central, and I need a flex play really quick, and my league's really deep, and everyone's all over the wire. It looks like junk out there. We'll grab Sean Tucker, and maybe he vultures a touchdown. Maybe he'll be my touchdown vulture pick of the week this week, Sean Tucker. But
we should have that as a category.
I know we should make a segment on that because we keep alluding to it. But I guess so.
And just recapping the top running backs again, if Rico Dowdle or Rachaad White are available, we're prioritizing those guys. Then Michael Carter being next on that list. You can kind of make a conglomerate of Kendre Miller, Isaiah Davis. I think both of those are in the same sort of spot. And then I would add Rashard Smith right below that. And then the Chargers backs, including Jerome Ford, who I still think will be a trade candidate down the road for for Los Angeles. Kimani Vidal first, then Hassan Haskins and Jerome Ford in that mix among the guys we've discussed earlier. I know Bam Knight scored for the Cardinals. I don't want to really go down to that direction of running back. Like that gets to be a little bit.
That's so different than Amir Abdullah vulturing one touchdown from Jonathan Taylor.
He already had 3 that game.
Yeah, exactly.
I needed the 4th, by the way, but that's fine. I
can't use the 4th. Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. But, I don't want to get too greedy here. I've been loving Jonathan Taylor, our Badger, this year.
Yeah, he has been fantastic. We'll take another word from our sponsors, Blue Wire, and be back right away for the video audience right now. All right, and again, talking about the receiver aspect of this, we mentioned the Kendrick Bourne, Ryan Flournoy. I think both of them are 1 week streamers. If you have a preference over the other, Jake seems to like Kendrick Bourne a bit more, and that Jalen Tolbert played so much for the Cowboys, didn't do anything. That's because I started him. That would be a Joe Bartel problem, but Ryan Flournoy is probably my top of that receiver list. It's a weak group, though, because there really isn't a lot of ones that we haven't discussed before, which I think is part of the problem for this.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah, Kendrick Bourne and Ryan Flournoy, but very, very short-term possible ads here. I threw a couple other guys that you could note. One of them barely counts because he's already 47% rostered, but Josh Downs actually led the Colts with 8 targets. He didn't score though, and he actually only had 26 snaps compared to 45 for Pittman and 39 for Ashton Doolin, which is weird. So you mix that up with Alec Pierce having a setback in his concussion protocol, so he missed the second consecutive game. I think Josh Downs is probably over rostered than anything, but he's someone I could see coming up on lists after 8 targets, but maybe pump the brakes a little bit there. Someone I'm interested in a little bit more is Christian Kirk. Now, granted, the Texans blew out the Ravens here, but he caught all 4 of his targets for 64 yards. He just missed the TD. He was short. He's only 31% rostered. I think Christian Kirk is going to be startable perhaps in the weeks ahead, but of course the Texans are on a bye this week, so maybe you can wait till make a note for next week to grab Christian Kirk after someone drops him in a tough bye week decision here. And then this guy's from your column here, who I actually missed the Darius Slayton ankle injury. It was a hamstring injury. Mm-hmm. He left the game late. He never came back. Obviously Wan'Dale Robinson's leader, 66 snaps. Slayton had 57, 32 snaps for Jalen Hyatt, who was targeted 3 times but didn't catch any of them. He was a 3rd-round pick in 23 that had some steam at one point. He never really had a quarterback that could get him the ball. And, of course, there are guys like Robinson and Slayton that were sneaking into that wide receiver 2 role after Neighbors here. So Hyatt would be really kind of a Hail Mary here because, Jackson Dart's not exactly slinging it around. His fantasy value largely comes from his legs. And Jackson Dart loves going to his tight ends, which we'll talk about in a little bit.
Yeah, I think that's a good call with the Jalen Hyatt thing. I don't like I did not like Jalen Hyatt as a prospect. I think he has been a complete bust. I put this in the article. The effort trying to block for Jackson Dart was not there, and Dart actually chipped at him a little bit during the game. You could see the interaction. It was minor, but one of those things where love that my rookie quarterback is doing that to a vet, so to speak, but also Jalen Hyatt just finished the play. He might have more opportunities to prove the coaching staff wrong, and the Giants are not a good football team, so they might be more inclined to play their 3rd-round pick, especially.
I mean, they could have a new coach by midseason, as far as I know.
Yeah. One along the same lines of Tyler Algier, I had to drop Romeo Doubs in at least a few places. Maybe a few people didn't pick up Doubs either due to the bye week or anything else like that too. I think he was close to the 50% roster threshold. I will continue to remind folks he is the number 1 receiver for the Packers, and whatever verbiage you want to have that defined as, he's the 3rd down threat, the touchdown threat, and favorable matchup to come.
Those quick slants on RPOs on the 2-yard line
in the red zone.
It's not always Jacobs. Like if the defense is selling out to stop Jacobs and Dobbs has one-on-one coverage, Love will pull it back and throw it. And that happened in 2 of the 3 touchdowns against the Cowboys here. Dobbs, I actually should have put on there. He's 50% rostered. He would have probably, I'd go Dobbs over Kendrick Bourne for sure, just because there's rest of season utility there.
We try to tackle a lot of deeper options in the show, and I think it's just a reminder for folks that if Dobbs is available, he should be rostered more than 50%. I think that's a fair answer to that. So I think that covers the receivers again.
If someone had to drop them for buys this week.
Yeah, like me or all the injuries. I actually put it over in the article as well too. I had just an absurd sequence of events. It felt like from Friday to Sunday with all the guys I thought could play and then get hurt. It was very, very frustrating. We'll get one more word from our sponsors here, Circa Sports. It's football season, of course, and the best place to catch the games is at Circa Resort and Casino in downtown Las Vegas, featuring the best pool in history, Stadium Swim. Stadium Swim has 3 levels, 6 pools, and 143-foot diagonal screen. Whether it's Thursday, Saturday, Sunday, or Monday, Stadium Swim is America's favorite place to watch football. No matter the size of your group, Stadium Swim is the place for you. From owner suites to cabanas, day beds to stadium booths, there are seating choices for everyone. And the best place, or I guess the best part and best place, is Stadium Swim is open 365 days a year with temperature-controlled pools. It's a great place to catch all the games all season long. Stadium Swim located at Circa Resort and Casino in downtown Las Vegas. Book today at circalasvegas.com. We talked about at the top of the show. I don't think we have to expand on it too much further, but probably a good tight end week if you are in need of, low-end flex, right? Or I said low-end tight end 1. Mason Taylor being the leading target guy for the Jets now 2 consecutive weeks, I think, getting 12 this week as well. And it was in junk time, but I think it matters that Mason Taylor's developing there too. And then you have A.J. Barner getting 2 touchdowns for the Seahawks. You mentioned Sam Darnold, the top, or I guess earlier the quarterbacks, Jake. A.J. Barner is not developing into his preferred target, but I think he is a bigger part of that offense than a lot of folks might have actually realized.
Yeah, 100%. First and foremost, I will say that I agree that Stadium Swim is the best pool in the world. I love that place. It's an amazing place to go. Have to do that. It's a must stop in Vegas if you get the
Yes.
chance, especially if you're a sports fan here. But yes, we talked about Mason Taylor. If your league was sharp enough to scoop up Michael Carter before the week started, Mason Taylor suddenly probably becomes your top overall target here. Just because of his target share, his snaps, and the upcoming schedule. Yeah, he's got Denver, but then he's got Carolina and Cincinnati. I know AJ Barner's getting a lot of hype. I actually put Theo Johnson as my number 2 tight end, almost cracking my top 5. He's only 11% rostered in Yahoo. He has target shares of 18% and 25% in 2 games without Malik Neighbors, and 3 combined touchdowns in those 2 games here. So the Neighbors targets are going somewhere, but it's not to Wan'Dale Robinson, Darius Slayton, Jalen Hyatt. It's going to the tight ends, Theo Johnson and Daniel Bellinger. And I think Theo Johnson is the preferred add over Bellinger because of the touchdown upside. We talked 2 weeks ago how he was schemed a touchdown in a goal line scenario, and then he comes out this week and gets a couple scores. So he's right there with AJ Barner. The thing with AJ Barner is they have the Seahawks have a couple of good backs. They've got JSN, Jackson Smith, and Najigba. There are a lot of other threats to score, but clearly he's someone that Sam Darnold looks to in the red zone. And he had 7 targets, which is definitely noteworthy. Caught all 7 of them for 53 yards. Just the 65% route participation, which is a little bit lower than you want from a fantasy tight end, but not crazy. But he did have a 20.6% target share, which is significant. He has 4 touchdowns in his last 5 weeks, 3 in his last 2. AJ Barner is definitely there. But both AJ Barner and Theo Johnson, you're chasing touchdowns. If he doesn't score a touchdown, you end up with one of those 3 catches for 25 weeks and are pretty disappointed there. So Mason Taylor obviously should be your top target. Good chunk of fab too for Mason Taylor if you can, because I think he'll be a guy that you can plug and play at tight end the rest of the season. He's got that high floor even if he doesn't score, because he hasn't. Now, if he does start scoring, then we're going to have, maybe a top 5 tight end on our hands. I think you nailed that to start the year. Any comments on those guys? I've got a couple other quick hitters too.
No, I think the Theo Johnson one's probably who I'd rather add. Daniel Bellinger led the Giants in receiving yards. I don't know if it's that it's Malik Neighbors out now, the targets go to tight ends, or if that was more due to game script, and also just a way to make Jackson Dart comfortable. I think that's a Brian Dable part of this offense. And again, I don't want to roster either. I put in the article that I would do whatever I can. I'll trade for somebody like Mason Taylor before I actually have to play either one of them. However, I played Tommy Tremble this week in a bunch of places because I had to.
I did that too.
With all, and that looked horrible, right? So I don't mind
my Kittle league. I didn't draft a backup, so I missed out on some of these guys.
Well, and I didn't go after Tonjes, which was dumb on my part. And of course, scores on the Niners
before the Thursday game. Yep.
Yeah, probably could talk about him as well too. But
exactly. I wanted to note. I mentioned this earlier, but I'm definitely dropping Juwan Johnson for Mason Taylor this week. His volume has decreased since Foster Moreau and Taysom Hill are both back. Only the last 2 weeks have been 12.5% target share and 13.3% target share. So Juwan Johnson was attractive earlier in the season because he was approaching double-digit targets every game. It's looking like that may not be the case with everyone healthy at the position. So I'm definitely dropping him for Mason Taylor. And it's going to be tempting to maybe drop him for Theo Johnson or AJ Barner too. These guys that are getting the volume that we were hoping Juwan Johnson would here. And you mentioned Jake Tonjes. He's interesting. Just for one more week, though. I mean, he had 11 targets, caught 7 of them for 41 in his score. But, that's like the Kendrick Bourne scenario. All that stuff about, obviously Kittle's coming back. Does that change when Purdy comes back to relieve Mac Jones? How does that change when Jennings and Pearsall are back here? So that's some red flags with Tonjes, but maybe a 1 week stream if you need to.
Yeah, you had talked about AJ Barner, Elijah Royale being that the rookie 3rd-round pick, a lot of hype more time. I think Barner, again, referencing that he should be good. And then Cole Kmet, we don't know the extent of Colston Loveland's injury. Bears were on bye this past week. If Loveland's not available, Cole Kmet also in that threshold where guys that might have a bye week roll too. And then we probably should have mentioned this at the top, but much like Rachaad White and Rico Dowdle, who are above our threshold, if Darren Waller is somehow available, I guess you got to go ahead and play him. I couldn't have been more wrong about that one as well too.
Yeah.
He ended up having a great first half for the Dolphins.
Yeah, so Darren Waller, 3 touchdowns in 2 games since returning. He was actually less involved this week compared to last week. He's 67% rostered in Yahoo leagues, but if you have the Yahoo Plus, you can see that he's only 35% rostered in Diamond leagues, which suggests there is some draft bias, right? Like people were drafting him late as a tight end. And then most active, paid leagues, he was cut when he wasn't playing because people, wanted the roster spots. So there's a good chance if your league's active, he's actually below your threshold. So go ahead and look at Darren Waller because, with Tyreek Hill out, more targets to go around. Miami loves him around the red zone. So he's interesting. And I know the production hasn't followed, but I do want to mention Oronde Gadsden for the Chargers had a 28% route share in week 3 that bumped up to 50% in week 4 and 61% in week 5. So he's running more and more routes. Eventually, I think that will translate to a little bit of production. He should be a monster target in the red zone. So he's interesting, but that's more of a spec ad compared to these other guys that are producing right now.
Well, if you were like me, Jake, I had mentioned the Rams defense as a play that I wanted to use, and I also had Spencer Schrader, the kicker for the Colts. If you had the combined 3 points from those two, you lost lots of leagues. So, again, the Joe Bartel stink on the kicker and defense of all things in fantasy. But if you didn't listen to my Rams pickup or you were more in on the Colts and Cardinals, that end up working out in our favor. I think this week, actually, there are a decent amount of streaming defenses at least available that I would consider too.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely cutting the Rams here right away. I was so tempted. I almost in one league, I was going to cut the Broncos defense, but I was going to cut dead roster weight to start the Rams over the Broncos. I'm glad I did not overthink that and do that. Broncos, of course, playing against Philly in that offense there. They handled them well, of course, handing them their first loss of the year. Looking to streams this week, obviously Colts and Cards were fine for the most part this week. Colts a little bit better here. The Colts have the Cardinals this week. They're at home. They're just 48% rostered here. I wanted to note the Packers, 45% rostered versus Cincinnati. Obviously, if DeAndre Wyatt's not playing in the interior of that
Devontae Wyatt. You've said it a few times. I've allowed it. Devontae Wyatt.
Why do I keep saying DeAndre?
I will not allow you to disparage one of the more underrated defense tackles in the league, Devontae Wyatt, first-round pick.
He's been surging lately. I should have that name right, man. That's my bad. But the fact that I keep bringing Wyatt up shows what a big part of that defense he is. And because we saw on Sunday Night Football 2 weeks ago how Dak was able to get around Parsons and Gary on the edge and just step up in the pocket because the D tackles weren't getting any pushes. But when it's all said and done, the Packers are at home this week, and they're 14.5-point favorites against Jake Browning and the Cincinnati Bengals. Browning loves throwing picks. I'm going to call at least one McKinney pick this week. That's happening. And, possibly more than that. And, of course, the pass rush, if they can scheme that and get it a little together. I mean, the Packers, if you've been streaming defenses, obviously the Packers, their bye is out. They do have some tough matchups at the end, but just the pass rush. And, last year they were ball hawks, not quite as much this year, but it's a possible set and forget rest of season option.
Bengals, Cardinals, Panthers. That's the next 3 weeks, right?
Exactly. Bengals, Cardinals, Panthers. This is the time to get the Packers. I would even spend one fab dollar on them. And cut the Rams if you're in that situation. I also highlighted the Patriots at 16%. They're on the road, so I like that a little bit less. But they are playing the Saints, and Patriots defense, I mean, granted they're fired up and came to play for the division rivals, the Buffalo Bills, but they're only 16% rostered, and Vrabel has that defense playing pretty well. I like them less because they're on the road, but like them also because they're playing Spencer Rattler and the Saints, so that's interesting. Then you could also, I'm sure Raiders, Titans are the lowest over-under on the whole week. I didn't even look at those, but Raiders are in that matchup. I would lean slightly towards the home team. They're only 2% rostered. They get the Titans at home. Obviously, the Titans from the East Coast heading over to Vegas. We'll see how that goes. And of course, the Raiders have Max Crosby still, who can make plays on his own on any given time, and possibly get you another 6 into that score here. So the Raiders are my longer shot pick if you needed a stream, but definitely check out the Packers, Colts, Patriots first, and consider the Raiders after that.
There you go. A comprehensive list. I try to put together the most psychotic waiver wire article out there in fantasy, which is updating daily your top options. We've been on the cutting edge, I'd say, for the past 3 weeks now on obvious pickups that come out the week after. So Mason Taylor being one of them. I continue to maintain that Isaiah Davis for the Jets is in that same sort of range. And if you've been listening to us or reading the articles on the site again, YouTube 15 gets you 15% off a code to RotoWire itself. We have a lot of great content. Jerry Donobean's box score breakdown's been a catalyst for a lot of these awesome updates as well too. And overall, make sure you check out the RotoWire content there. We'll have the YouTube video in the article itself. If you want to keep joining us in the comments throughout the rest of the season, that's great. But otherwise, we're back in this time Monday. Thank you, everyone, for listening and following along.